Hi! Over the past few months, I got a lot of criticism for being a bad Muslim. When I showed you the gay capital of the world, Castro in San Francisco, I was called a bad Muslim.
Well, you're not wrong. But let's be real. The criticism isn't just about religion. You're not only being called a bad Muslim, you're being called a hypocrite. Someone who built a brand on positivity and culture only to end up looking ironic and fake. Nas Daily, the guy in the black t-shirt, the king of 1-minute videos. He used to stop the world for 60 seconds at a time, sharing stories of hope, humanity, and adventure. His rise was meteoric, but the higher you climb, the harder you fall. And Nas has fallen hard. Today, the man who once had millions hanging on every word is struggling to get a fraction of the views he used to. His reputation is in pieces, his audience has vanished, and what's left is a trail of controversies that make people wonder, was he ever really the hero we thought, or was he the villain all along?
Remember this quote: you either die a hero, or you live long enough to become the villain.
Nas Daily's real name is Nusser Yassin. He was born in Araba, Israel, to a Palestinian Muslim family, and by 19 he was already at Harvard on a scholarship studying aerospace engineering. On paper, his future looked like Silicon Valley or academia, but he had other plans. After working at Venmo for a short time, he quit to chase a dream of traveling and making videos. Back in 2012, he got his first taste of virality when he sent a hamburger into space strapped to a weather balloon. 4 years later, he launched the Nas Daily project, one video every day for 1,000 days straight. The black t-shirt, the 1-minute format, the high-energy delivery. It was a perfect formula for the Facebook era. By 2019, he had more than 12 million followers and was being compared to names like Jay Shetty. For a while, he wasn't just another creator. He was the creator who made the world feel smaller in just 60 seconds. But that rapid rise was also the setup for the fall. Because once the shine wore off, the cracks in his storytelling started to show.
You push the climate change agenda, you push a lot of these agendas, these woke agendas, but here, what's the cover?
We've done more for climate change than you have.
Here? What have you done?
We've done.
How did you get here?
We've done more for climate change than you have.
How did you get here?
Okay, see you later.
Nas, how did you get here? You do, mate. You do. There you go. The biggest hypocrite on YouTube.
People had already been calling him out for oversimplifying cultures and even exploiting the very communities he claimed to uplift. His video on poverty in the Philippines, for example, was slammed for romanticizing hardship instead of showing the real struggles. In 2020, he angered Singaporeans with a video on their education system that they said was shallow and misleading. And when he relocated to Dubai, critics accused him of chasing tax breaks and influencer perks rather than sticking to his original mission. For a while, he brushed it all off, but the cracks were widening. The real breaking point came in October 2023, when the Gaza conflict exploded and the world was demanding answers, solidarity, and a voice for the voiceless. And who better to speak than Nusser Yassin, a Palestinian Muslim who grew up in Israel? People waited to hear what he'd say. Nas answered with a video titled, "My Israel and Palestine Explained." In it, he appeared calm, smiling, talking about peace and the need to understand both sides. But that tone, that middle ground neutrality, landed like a slap in the face. People under fire don't want platitudes about understanding. To many, it sounded like he was sidestepping the pain of his own people to protect his brand. Then came the tweet, "I'm Israeli first, Palestinian second." That one line was the spark that set the whole thing ablaze. For Palestinians, it felt like betrayal. For Israelis, it wasn't enough either. Instead of bridging two sides, he managed to alienate both. And when old footage resurfaced of him joking with friends and cursing Israel when he thought the cameras were off, the contradictions destroyed whatever credibility he had left. Was he pro-Israel? Pro-Palestine? Neutral? Or just opportunistic? Nobody knew anymore, and nobody trusted him. And if that wasn't bad enough, He made it worse the next year. In July 2024, he uploaded a video titled, "I studied Islam for 1 month and lost all my hair." At first glance, it looked like a provocative, funny hook. But for Muslims, it was deeply offensive. Shaving your head after pilgrimage, after Umrah, isn't a gimmick. It's sacred. It's a ritual of humility, of purification, following the Prophet's path. Turning that into clickbait? That was a line he never should have crossed. The backlash was swift. Comments poured in accusing him of ignorance, of mocking faith, of turning religion into a prop for views. Muslim creators like Smile to Jannah released entire rebuttal videos, pointing out not just the lack of research, but the lack of respect. One comment that stuck out said, "You learn nothing, you're just playing games." And that summed it up. What once looked like cultural storytelling now felt like performance. For someone who built his brand on connecting the world, reducing Islam to a 1-month experiment and a punchline was seen as reckless, disrespectful, and arrogant. By this point, Nas's image was already shaky. The Gaza video and the bad Muslim controversy had fractured his audience. But the truth is, his reputation had started slipping much earlier. And nowhere did it hit harder than in the Philippines. Back in July 2021, Nas uploaded one of his most popular pieces, "The World's Oldest Tattoo Artist." It featured Apo Wang Od, a 103-year-old woman from the Kalinga province who's considered the last Mamba Batok. A living legend, keeping alive the ancient art of hand-tap tattoos. The video was a success, pulling in over 1 million views and endless praise for spotlighting such a unique cultural treasure. For a moment, people thought, this is Nas Daily at his best. But then, in the description, he quietly announced something that would flip the narrative completely. Wang Od was officially teaching tattooing on his platform, Nas Academy. That's when her grandniece Gracia jumped on Facebook with a post that went viral instantly. Wang Od Academy is a scam. My grandmother did not sign any contract with Nas Daily to do any academy. Some people are taking advantage of our culture. It was a gut punch. What looked like cultural preservation suddenly looked like exploitation. Nas tried to defend himself, posting a video of Wang Od pressing her thumbprint on a contract as proof she had given consent. But instead of calming things down, it only stirred up more anger. Many Filipinos saw it as disrespectful, the kind of tactic colonizers used in the past to trick indigenous people into giving away their land and heritage. The National Commission on Indigenous Peoples even stepped in, launching an investigation that revealed something Nas clearly hadn't bothered to understand. Wang Od's art wasn't just her personal property, it was a collective cultural asset of the Kalinga community. Consent from one person wasn't enough. He had crossed into sacred territory without the respect or patience to do it right. The backlash was brutal. Within 3 days, he lost 500,000 followers, and hashtags like #unfollow Nas Daily trended across Filipino social media. Even though Nas eventually paused the project and later reached some kind of resolution with Wang Od's family, the damage was already done. For many, it cemented him as an outsider profiting off traditions he didn't fully respect. And if that wasn't enough, another storm hit almost immediately. Filipino entrepreneur Louise Mabulo, founder of the Cacao Project, came forward with her own story about Nas. She claimed that when he visited her farm to film a video, he openly mocked her community, imitated the Tagalog accent, and dismissed her farmers as not clickable content. He allegedly called the Philippines poor and told her that her story was boring, basically useless unless it could be packaged for views. In her words, Nas wasn't there to help. He was there to exploit. Nas fired back, calling her project fraudulent and insisting there was no story worth telling. But at that point, the details almost didn't matter. For Filipinos, the pattern was clear. First Wangod, then the farmers. Both stories painted him as someone who didn't care about culture, heritage, or truth. Just about spinning content he could monetize. The fact that Luiz's cacao initiative had actually won a UN award for environmental impact only made his dismissiveness look worse. Between Wangod and the Cacao Project, Nas wasn't just losing Filipino fans, he was losing credibility worldwide. The Philippines' controversies spread across international news outlets, framing him not as a cultural ambassador, but as someone profiting off the very people he claimed to uplift. And once the exploiter label stuck, it became nearly impossible to shake. After that, things only spiraled. In late 2021, he posted a glowing video about Sam Bankman-Fried, calling him the most generous billionaire. The timing couldn't have been worse. Just a year later, FTX collapsed in one of the biggest financial scandals in history, and SBF was sentenced to 25 years for fraud. Nas looked either naive or complicit, depending on who you asked. Then in 2022, he did the same thing with Binance's founder, Changpeng Zhao, labeling him the most humble crypto billionaire. Not long after, Binance was hit with charges for money laundering and sanctions violations. Both times, Nas failed to disclose that these were paid promotions, violating YouTube's transparency rules. The so-called humanitarian creator was now being seen as a corporate shill for scammers. By then, the common thread was impossible to ignore. Whether it was faith, culture, or finance, Nas approached everything with the same formula. Simplify it, package it, sell it. And when critics called him out, his ego made it worse. He couldn't accept blame. He always had an excuse, always painted himself as misunderstood. That arrogance alienated the very audiences who once saw themselves in his stories. Today, the numbers tell the story. Videos that once racked up millions now barely break 100,000. His Twitter account has 177,000 followers, but most posts struggle to scrape 100 likes. The king of 1-minute videos is now shouting into the void, his audience gone, and his influence reduced to a shadow of what it once was. And maybe that's the real lesson here. Fame can make you think you're untouchable, but the moment you lose humility, the moment you start treating culture and faith like props, the fall is inevitable. Nas Daily went from hero to villain, from inspiration to cautionary tale. So the question is, was he always the villain hiding behind positivity, or did the fame and ego turn him into one? Because either way, the result is the same. The world stopped listening.